If your brother sins, go and show him his fault, just between the two of you. Surely, in life, each of us has at least once felt hurt or troubled by the mistakes of others. At such times, it is easy to choose to remain silent, nurturing frustration in our hearts, or worse, telling the story to a third or fourth person. But the teaching of Jesus in the Gospel of Matthew invites us to another path, a path of love and healing. If your brother sins, go and show him his fault in private, just between the two of you. How gentle and delicate this invitation is. The Lord does not ask us to do great things, but first to begin with a private encounter, just between the two of you, not to judge, condemn, or shame our brother, but to open a safe space, a bridge of empathy. It is a place where brotherhood is prioritized, where truth is shared in love, and where the opportunity to restore a relationship is given. This action not only helps our brother recognize his mistake, but also serves as a healing balm for our own wounded soul. When we courageously approach our brother with humility and sincerity, we are not only practicing the Lord's teaching, but also building a stronger community, a community that knows how to love and forgive. Because, as a beautiful saying concludes, love is not looking at each other, but looking together in the same direction. When both look toward reconciliation and understanding, all mistakes can be forgiven, and all wounds can be healed. Indeed, Jesus' seemingly simple teaching on correcting a brother is like a small mustard seed that, when sown in the soil of the soul, will grow into a great tree, casting its shade over an entire community. It is not a dry law, but an art of living, a path of the heart that requires skill, courage, and above all, infinite love. Hidden behind the invitation, in private, just between the two of you, is a whole ski of profound philosophy about human dignity, the power of healing, and the nature of true brotherhood. Below are the philosophies extracted from that precious teaching, each a candle illuminating the hidden corners of our souls and our relationships. Before we begin, we kindly invite you to take a moment to subscribe to our channel to help spread this valuable content to your family and friends. We thank you, and now we invite you to listen. 1. Correction is an act of love, not of judgment. The foundation of all sincere feedback must be love and the desire for the good of our brother, not to satisfy our own anger or ego. It is an act to save a soul, not to win an argument. One afternoon, Peter ran hastily to Jesus, pointing toward the market, and said, "Teacher, I saw Levi sitting and collecting taxes with sinners again. I must go and expose his bad habits to everyone." Jesus placed a hand on his shoulder, his eyes gentle. "Peter, do you want to expose a person's sin, or do you want to save a brother? Go to Levi, but not with the torch of indignation, but with the oil lamp of love." 2. Dignity is the soil where the seed of repentance sprouts. When a person's dignity is preserved, they have a safe space to acknowledge their mistakes. Public humiliation only creates defensiveness and resentment. Respect in private opens the door to change. When the crowd was whispering about a woman in the village, Andrew said to Jesus, "Teacher, we must tell everyone about her deeds to make an example of her." Jesus shook his head. "Andrew, shaming a person before a crowd is like trampling a young sapling. Instead of giving her a reason to be resentful, let's give her a reason to want to be better. Go and meet her in private." 3. Reconciliation is the goal, not victory. The ultimate goal of correction is not to prove I am right, you are wrong, but to mend a fractured relationship. Winning an argument but losing a friend is a failure. James and John were arguing fiercely about who was at fault in a shared task. Jesus approached and asked, "Are you two trying to prove who is right, or are you trying to find the path to walk together again? Because the path you walk together is far more important than who stumbled along the way." 4. Courage whispers in private, while cowardice shouts in public. It takes very little courage to speak ill of someone behind their back, but to face them directly with gentleness and sincerity requires extraordinary courage. It is the courage of love. Some people from Capernaum were gossiping about Zacchaeus. Jesus heard them and turned to say, "Words spoken behind the back are just a passing wind, but a sincere encounter can change a life. Who among you is brave enough to invite Zacchaeus for a meal and speak to him as a brother, instead of stoning him with words from a distance?" 5. Truth. Without love is cruelty. Speaking the truth is necessary, but how we speak the truth is even more important. A truth spoken without being wrapped in empathy and love can become a weapon that wounds. A Pharisee proudly told Jesus, "I always speak the truth bluntly, even if it offends others." Jesus replied, "Truth is like the sun, essential for life. But without the atmosphere of love to shield it, that light will burn everything it touches. Speak the truth, but speak it with the warmth of your heart." 6. Correcting a brother is also a way of healing oneself. When we hold on to anger, we are the first to be harmed. Daring to dialogue in a constructive spirit not only helps the other person, but also frees our own soul from the burden of resentment. Mary Magdalene came to Jesus with a sad face. "Teacher, the words of a sister hurt me deeply, and I cannot forget them." Jesus replied, "Then do not hold on to them any longer. Resentment is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. Go, tell your sister your feelings with gentleness. That act will heal you both." 7. A bridge of trust is built with stones of blunts. Every time we choose to offer feedback in private instead of exposing another's faults, we are laying a stone in the bridge of trust. A strong community is built on such bridges. Thomas wondered, "Teacher, why don't you publicly point out Judas's fault so we can be on guard?" Jesus looked at him sadly. "Thomas, I came to save what was lost, not to cast it out. As long as it is possible, I will still use the stones of trust and hope to build a bridge to your brother's soul, instead of using the bricks of suspicion to build a wall." 8. Protecting another's honor is protecting the image of God in them. Every person carries the image of God within them, no matter how tarnished by sin. When we treat others with sensitivity and respect, even when they are at fault, we are respecting the Creator's own handiwork. A villager complained about a Roman soldier who behaved cruelly. Jesus said, "Even in the one you consider an enemy, there is a spark that God placed there. When you go to correct someone, try to speak to that spark, not just confront the darkness that surrounds them." 9. Before removing the speck from your brother's eye, feel the log in your own. Feedback is only truly valuable when it comes from a humble heart, from someone who is aware of their own weaknesses. Self-righteousness will make our words arrogant and useless. A scribe told Jesus, "I must go and teach those sinners about the law." Jesus asked him in return, "Very well, but before you teach them about the commandments, has your heart learned the lesson of mercy? Because the best physician is one who has also felt the pain of illness." 10. To correct also means to listen. A genuine dialogue is always a two-way street. When you approach your brother, be prepared with ears to hear their story, their reasons, their pain. Sometimes, the truth lies somewhere between two stories. A disciple said to Jesus, "I am ready to tell my brother his fault." Jesus nodded. "Good. But when you go, bring 2 ears and only 1 mouth. Be prepared to listen more than you speak. Perhaps in your brother's story, you will also find a lesson for yourself." Before we continue with today's journey of discovery, we would greatly appreciate it if you could take a moment to leave a comment and share your feelings. If you found this content valuable, please don't forget to hit the share button to spread these positive vibes to your friends and family. And now, let's get back to the program. 11. Timing is the golden key to healing. Feedback, no matter how sincere, becomes useless if given at the wrong time. A heart that is angry or a soul in turmoil cannot receive the truth. Wisdom is not only knowing what to say, but also when to say it and when to be silent. Peter ran to Jesus, his face red with anger. "I have to go tell Andrew right now. He ruined everything." Jesus held him back and said, "Peter, you cannot sow a seed of reconciliation in a storm. Wait for the sun of your anger to set, and for the ground of your brother's heart to soften. Only then can your words sprout." 12. The purpose is to restore, not to exclude. The act of correction is not a procedure to push the wrongdoer out of the community. On the contrary, it is a loving effort to bring them back, to mend the frayed thread of brotherhood. It carries the spirit of the shepherd seeking the lost sheep. A few disciples were discussing shunning a new tax collector who had joined the group because he still had his old habits. Jesus overheard and told them the parable of the shepherd who leaves the 99 sheep to find the one that was lost. He concluded, "The joy of the kingdom of heaven is not in keeping the flock pure by exclusion, but in carrying the lost sheep home on your shoulders." 13. Silence in dialogue is also a language. Giving feedback is not a monologue. After speaking the truth in love, give your brother the gift of silence. That pause allows them to think, to digest the words, and for the Spirit to have a chance to work in their soul without pressure. Jude, not Iscariot, asked Jesus, "Teacher, what should I do if my brother refuses to listen?" Jesus answered, "Say your part with gentleness, then offer him your silence. In that quiet, God may speak to him louder than any words you could say." 14. Mend a small crack before it becomes a chasm. Many relationships break not because of one big event, but because of countless small, unresolved issues. Correcting each other on small matters is wise maintenance, preventing tiny cracks from becoming an impassable chasm. Jesus saw 2 women in the crowd ignoring each other over a small misunderstanding. He called his disciples and said, "Look, brotherhood is like a wineskin. A small hole, if ignored, will soon let all the precious wine leak out. Patch the holes when they are still small." 15. Kindness without wisdom can be harmful. Sometimes we remain silent not out of love, but out of a fear of confrontation. Avoiding a necessary conversation in the name of keeping the peace is actually an unloving act, as it allows our brother to continue on the wrong path and lets the seeds of division grow. Martha complained, "I won't say anything to Mary to keep the family peace." Jesus answered her, "Martha, true peace is not the absence of conflict, but the presence of truth and love. A boil needs to be lanced, not covered with a beautiful cloth." 16. Look at the pattern, not just the act. Sometimes, a mistake is not an isolated event, but a symptom of a deeper problem, a pattern of behavior. A private conversation is an opportunity to explore the root of the problem together, not just to chop off the leaves of a single wrong act. Someone came to tattle to Jesus. "That brother lied again." Jesus asked in return, instead of just counting the times he has stumbled, "Have you ever asked why his path is so slippery? Go and ask him about the shoes he is wearing, not just about the stain on his shirt." 17. Separate the person from their mistake. Your brother is not his mistake. The mistake is something they did, not who they are. When giving feedback, attack the problem, not the person. Let them see that you are against their mistake, but you are always on their side. When the disciples called someone the greedy one, Jesus corrected them. Do not call your brother by the name of his sin. Call him by the name God called him when he created him. Tell him that the act of greed is obscuring the generous person God wants him to be. 18. Our patience reflects God's patience. God never gives up on us after our first mistake. He is patient and gives us chance after chance. When we approach our brother with patience, even when they don't listen immediately, we are becoming a channel for God's own persistent mercy. After a failed attempt at reconciliation, John said in frustration, "It's useless, teacher." Jesus replied, "Does the sun get discouraged when it rises each morning, even though many are still sound asleep? Does the rain refuse to fall because some dry ground won't absorb it? Let your love be like that, giving without getting discouraged." 19. A private conversation is holy ground. When two people meet in sincerity to resolve a fault, that place becomes a sacred space. It is where God is present to heal and reconcile. Therefore, enter that conversation with respect, prayer, and an awareness of the invisible presence of the third party. Two disciples were preparing to meet someone who had offended them. They asked Jesus, "What should we say?" Jesus replied, "Before you think about what to say to your brother, speak with your Father in heaven. Ask him to go with you, so that the meeting is not a confrontation between two people, but an encounter of three." 20. Forgiveness is the beginning and the end of correction. We approach our brother because we already have a spirit of forgiveness, and the purpose of the conversation is so that forgiveness can be fully given and received, paving the way for a new beginning. Feedback without forgiveness is just a condemnation. Peter asked, "After I've told my brother his fault, what then?" Jesus answered, "Then you open your arms wide, because your words are only to clear the path for the embrace of forgiveness. Without that embrace, all words become meaningless." 21. Every reconciliation is an investment in the community's capital. A community is measured not by the perfection of its members, but by its ability to heal wounds. Every time a relationship is mended, the capital of trust, safety, and love of the entire community increases, making it stronger and more resilient. Jesus said to his disciples, "When you see two brothers make peace, rejoice, for they are not only rebuilding their own house, but they are also adding a solid stone to the foundation of the house we all share." 22. Knowing your brother's fault is a burden of love. When God allows you to see another's fault, it is not information for gossip, but a trust. You are given a burden, which is the responsibility to act lovingly, to help that brother. To remain silent is to refuse this sacred trust. A woman whispered to Jesus about her neighbor's fault. Jesus replied gently, "What your eyes see and your ears hear. The Father in heaven does not want it to become a burden for your tongue, but a motivation for your feet. Go to your sister." 23. We are facilitators of grace, not the source of grace. Our role is to clear the path, to open a channel for dialogue. But the real change in a person's soul is the work of God's grace. Do your part to the best of your ability, then humbly entrust the outcome to God. This frees us from the burden of having to fix others. After trying to talk to a friend without success, Matthew felt like a failure. Jesus comforted him. "Matthew, the farmer can only sow the seed and till the soil. He cannot command the seed to sprout. You have done your part. Trust in the great gardener, the Father in heaven." 24. The choice to reconcile always begins with one side. Don't wait for the person at fault to come to you first. True love is always proactive. The one who is spiritually stronger is the one who takes the first step, regardless of who is at fault. That step breaks the vicious cycle of silence and pride. Andrew said, "He should have come to me first." Jesus asked in return, "Who needs the light more, the one in darkness or the one standing near the lamp?" If you have the light of truth and love, bring it to where it is needed. Don't expect the darkness to find its own way to you. 25. Private correction is the antidote to the poison of gossip. Gossip and backbiting weaken and poison a community from within. Every time a person chooses direct and private dialogue, they are injecting an antidote into the body of the community, making it healthier and more resistant to the infection of division. Jesus said, "Gossip is like dandelion seeds in the wind, flying everywhere and sowing weeds. But a sincere, private conversation is like pulling up the weed by its root and planting a flower of understanding in its place." 26. The space for the conversation contributes to the conversation. Choosing an appropriate space and time is an act of respect. A walk in quiet nature will yield a different result than a confrontation in a tense room. Create a setting that makes openness and sincerity easier. A disciple was about to call his brother out into the middle of the courtyard to talk. Jesus stopped him. "Don't. Invite your brother for a walk along the lake. Where the water is calm, the human soul is more easily soothed. Where there is open space, the heart is more likely to open up." 27. A mended relationship is stronger than one that has never been tested. A fracture, if healed properly, can make a relationship deeper and more durable. It's like a broken bone that, once healed, becomes strongest at the break. Do not be afraid of challenges in brotherhood. See them as opportunities for growth. Seeing two disciples who were once angry at each other now closer than ever, Jesus said to the others, "Look, their friendship is now like a mended net. It is not just whole, but the knots of forgiveness have made it stronger against the storms to come." 28. Shared vulnerability is the bridge to empathy. When you approach someone not as a perfect judge, but as a brother who has also stumbled, you create a deep connection. Humility and the courage to reveal your own weakness are the keys to opening another's heart. A person said to Jesus, "I don't know what to say, because I'm not so good myself." Jesus encouraged him. Then start with that very sentence. Say, "Brother, I'm here not because I'm perfect, but precisely because I know what it's like to fall. So I don't want to see you walk alone right now." 29. Prayer is the preparation. Love is the medium. Reconciliation is the goal. Before starting a difficult conversation, take time to pray for wisdom and a pure heart. When you speak, use love as your only language. And always remember that the ultimate destination is not to prove yourself right, but to restore unity. Before the disciples set out to preach, Jesus instructed them, "When you go and when you stay, if there is discord, remember 3 things. Begin on your knees, prayer. Act with an open heart, love, and always aim for a hand, taking a hand, reconciliation. 30. The final act is to entrust the outcome to God. After you have done all you can with wisdom and love, peacefully entrust the result into God's hands. You are not responsible for the other person's reaction, only for your own obedience and sincerity. Peace will come when you know you have done the right thing, regardless of the outcome. A disciple returned sadly, "I did everything as you taught." But he would not listen. Jesus placed a hand on his shoulder. "You have sown the seed of love. Your work is done. Do not worry about when or how it will sprout. Trust in the farmer, in his sun and his rain. Go and continue to sow other seeds." Before we continue with today's journey of discovery, we would greatly appreciate it if you could take a moment to leave a comment and share your feelings. If you found this content valuable, please don't forget to hit the share button to spread these positive vibes to your friends and family. And now, let's get back to the program. 31. Clearly distinguish between correction and complaining. Complaining seeks validation for one's own frustration. Correction seeks restoration for a brother. Complaining focuses on how I was wronged. Correction focuses on how can I help you be better. One is self-pity, the other is love for another. A woman came to Jesus and began to complain about her sister. Jesus listened patiently and then asked, "My child, did you come here to find an ally for your frustration, or to find a way to heal the relationship with your sister?" Those two paths lead in very different directions. 32. Inner peace comes from obedience, not from avoidance. True peace is not found in avoiding difficult conversations. It is found in the serenity of a conscience that has done the right thing, what love demands, even when it is difficult and uncomfortable. A disciple appeared anxious about having to meet a friend to offer feedback. Jesus told him, "The sea in your heart is stormy, not because of the coming conversation, but because you are resisting what your heart knows is right. Have the courage to do it in love, and you will find a great calm." 33. Every reconciliation is a concrete victory for the kingdom of heaven. The forces of division, hatred, and bitterness are always seeking to destroy unity. Therefore, every time two people can overcome their pride to make peace, it is a powerful blow against evil and a tangible expression that the kingdom of heaven is present in their midst. After seeing two disciples who had been in conflict now chatting happily, Jesus smiled and said to the others, "Look, today in this place, the kingdom of heaven has grown a little larger, a little brighter. In heaven, the angels are rejoicing over such things." 34. The mechanism of correction is the immune system of a community. A healthy body automatically fights off infectious bacteria as soon as they enter. A healthy community is the same. It has a mechanism to deal with pathogens like sin and conflict directly, privately, and lovingly before they can spread and poison the entire body. Someone asked why they should bother with small faults. Jesus replied, "Does a body ignore a small thorn? If left alone, it will fester, cause pain, and could ruin an entire limb. A loving word at the right time is how the body of believers removes thorns and heals itself." 35. Forgiveness is to set free, not to condone. Forgiveness does not mean pretending the sin never happened or saying the action was acceptable. Forgiveness is releasing the other person from the debt they owe you, and more importantly, releasing yourself from the poison of resentment. Private feedback helps clarify what is being forgiven. A man said, "But teacher, if I forgive him, he will think what he did was right." Jesus replied, "You forgive so that your own soul may be free, not to justify his actions. You speak the truth so that sin is called by its name, and then you offer forgiveness so that both of you can be freed from its chains." 36. True strength is shown through vulnerability. In a world that values toughness, humbling yourself, admitting you were hurt, and approaching another person gently is an act of extraordinary strength. It is the strength that does not fear rejection, the strength that places the relationship above the ego. A disciple said, "Going to him like that will make me look weak." Jesus replied, "A rock is hard, but it cannot grow. A seed is soft and weak, but from it a great tree can grow." The softness of a heart that dares to love and dares to be vulnerable is the strength that can change the world. 37. Check your own assumptions before you set out. Before you go to correct someone, ask yourself, do I understand the whole story correctly? Is there a blind spot I'm not seeing? Is my hurt causing me to interpret their actions more negatively? Approach with an open mind, ready to be corrected yourself. Jesus taught, when you go to meet your brother, carry a question in your heart instead of a condemnation on your lips. Start with, "Please help me understand," instead of, "I want to tell you that." That humility will open doors. 38. Rebuilding trust is manual labor, one brick at a time. One conversation cannot instantly erase all doubt. After reconciliation, trust needs to be rebuilt through concrete, patient, and consistent actions. Every kept promise, every kind act is a new brick laid in the wall of trust. Someone asked, "We've made up, but why do I still feel uneasy?" Jesus answered, "When you patch a net, the knot is still there. It takes time for the waves of patience and repeated acts of love to soften that knot and make it blend into the net as if there was never a tear." 39. Grieve over the sin. Don't just be angry with the sinner. Anger may be the initial reaction, but it is not a good motivator for action. Pray for the heart of God, a heart that grieves to see his children go astray, a sorrow that motivates rescue, not punishment. Seeing the disciples angry about someone who had fallen, Jesus said, "Your anger is like a straw fire. It flares up and then dies out. It only burns. God's sorrow is like a river, flowing silently, bringing life and having the power to erode even solid rock." Pray for that holy sorrow. 40. Create a culture. Don't just perform an act. The ultimate purpose of this teaching is not just to resolve isolated incidents, but to create a community culture. A culture where people feel safe enough to give each other sincere feedback and humble enough to receive it as a gift. Jesus said to his disciples, "I am not just teaching you how to put out a fire. I am teaching you how to build a village of stone so that fire cannot easily catch." A community that knows how to correct each other in love is a community built with fireproof material. 41. Live in an economy of grace, not an economy of debt. In a relationship, never keep score of each other's mistakes. Giving feedback is not to collect a debt or to remind the other person of their error. It is an act of grace, meant to cancel that debt and return both to a state of freedom and equality in love. Jesus taught, "The kingdom of heaven does not operate like a tax collector's ledger, where every debt is recorded. It operates like a father's banquet table, where there is always a place for the returning child, and all debts are forgiven. Treat each other in that way." 42. Correction is also an act of self-respect. Remaining silent in the face of another's repeated wrongdoing not only harms them, but it also wounds your own dignity. Speaking up in the right way is how you say, I value this relationship enough not to let it be destroyed by this behavior, and I also value myself enough not to allow myself to be treated unjustly. A woman said, I just stay quiet to let things pass. Jesus replied, your silence could be mistaken for agreement. You have a voice. Use it gently but clearly to protect the boundaries of truth and justice, for that is also protecting the garden of your own soul. 43. Discipline of the heart begins with discipline of the tongue. Before using your tongue to correct others, learn to discipline it from gossiping, speaking ill, or complaining. When your tongue is accustomed to speaking constructive and loving words, your feedback will naturally carry the weight of truth and the power to heal. James asked how to speak wisely. Jesus replied, you cannot draw clean water from a muddy well. Spend time each day purifying the well of your heart with silence, prayer, and good words. Then, whenever you draw water, it will be pure. 44. Love transcends all hierarchies of power. This teaching does not only apply to peers, it requires the humility to offer feedback to those above you, and the gentleness and respect to offer it to those below you. Love and truth are the two supreme authorities, transcending all social structures. A Roman centurion came to ask Jesus about one of his soldiers. He said, though you are his superior, approach him not with the authority of a commander, but with the care of a father. Take off your armor of power so that heart can meet heart. 45. Reconcile with your brother before approaching the altar. Horizontal harmony with our brothers and sisters cannot be separated from vertical union with God. A heart that still harbors division with another cannot offer a pure gift to God. The act of correction and reconciliation is a necessary liturgical act. Jesus pointed to the altar and said, if you are offering your gift, and there remember that your brother has something against you, leave your gift there in front of the altar. First go and be reconciled to them, then come and offer your gift. Because God delights in a reconciled heart more than in any offering. 46. The ripple effect of a healing conversation. When two people make peace, the impact doesn't stop with them. It spreads to their families, friends, and the entire community. It sows hope, sets an example, and encourages others to act courageously as well. One small act of reconciliation can start a great wave of healing. Jesus said, an act of reconciliation is like throwing a pebble into a still lake. You only see a small circle at first, but its ripples spread ever outward, touching even distant shores you never expected. 47. Sometimes, it's not the person who needs fixing, but the relationship that needs healing. The problem may not lie in this person's fault or that person's fault, but in a lack of communication, accumulated misunderstandings, or past hurts within the relationship itself. The private meeting is an opportunity to jointly take the pulse of the relationship and find a remedy. A married couple came to Jesus, each recounting the other's faults. Jesus said, you two are like two gardeners, each complaining about the other's tree without realizing that the common ground on which you both stand has become barren. Tend to the soil of your love together first. 48. The courage to be the bad guy for a good cause. The person who gives feedback may be misunderstood or temporarily disliked. It takes courage to accept that risk for the greater good of the brother and of the truth. True love must sometimes be willing to pay the price of its own popularity. The disciples feared, if we speak out, they won't like us anymore. Jesus asked, "Does a doctor refuse to give bitter medicine for fear the patient won't like him?" True love seeks the long-term health of another, not the short-term affection for oneself. 49. See the image of Christ in the person you are about to confront. Even in the most erring brother, the image of Christ is still present, though obscured. When you approach them, be mindful that you are going to meet, serve, and heal Christ Himself in them. That will completely change your attitude and your words. Before a difficult meeting, a disciple asked for one last piece of advice. Jesus replied, "When you look into your brother's eyes, try to find my gaze there. When you listen to their words, try to hear my voice longing to be healed. You will know what to do." 50. This teaching is the narrow road of love. The world teaches us to be violent, to retaliate, or to gossip behind people's backs. That is the wide road. The road of Jesus, the road of private, humble, and loving confrontation, is the narrow road. Few choose to walk it, but it is the only road that leads to true life for relationships and for the community. Jesus concluded a long sermon on forgiveness. The path I show you is not the easiest one. It demands everything from you: courage, humility, patience, and a love that never gives up. But I promise you, at the end of that narrow road, you will not find victory, but something much greater: unity. 51. Sin is a dislocation. Correction is the act of setting it right. A sin or an offense is like a joint that has been dislocated from its proper place in the body of the community. It causes pain and makes the whole body function incorrectly. The act of loving correction is like a skilled physical therapist, gently setting that joint back into place, restoring harmony and function to the whole body. A disciple said, "I just want to forget about it." Jesus replied, "If your brother dislocated his shoulder, would you tell him to just forget it? Or would you find a way to help him set it right? A spiritual fracture needs to be treated just as carefully." 52. Forgiveness is a decision of the will. Forgetting is a work of time and grace. Don't torment yourself if you cannot immediately forget a hurt. Forgiveness is an action you decide on today. I will no longer use this fault against you. The healing of memory is a process, like a wound that needs time to form new skin. Forgive with your will and entrust the healing of your memory to God. Peter said, "Teacher, I have forgiven. But every time I see him, I remember the old story." Jesus said, "You have done your part, which is to open the cage door. The bird of memory may still fly around the room for a while. Don't try to catch it. Just keep the window of forgiveness wide open, and one day it will fly away on its own." 53. Don't bring a person's past into their present. When a person has been corrected, has repented, and has been forgiven, treat them as a new person. Bringing up their past mistakes is like forcing someone who has been healed to continue using crutches. True love allows others a fresh start. After Mary Magdalene had changed, some people still referred to her by her past. Jesus told them, "Why do you keep trying to read a page that has already been turned? God is writing a new chapter in her life. Read that new chapter with Him." 54. Truth is not a stone to be thrown, but a seed to be sown. The purpose of speaking the truth is not to injure the other person, but so that new life can sprout in them. A stone causes a bruise, a seed brings growth. How you deliver the truth will determine whether it is a stone or a seed. A person said, "I was just telling the truth." Jesus asked, "Did you speak that truth with a fist clenched as if to throw a stone, or with an open hand as if to sow a seed? Because the same truth, delivered in two different ways, will yield entirely different harvests." 55. The act of correction is a prayer on 2 feet. Praying for a brother is good, but sometimes love requires that prayer to grow legs and walk to that person. The courageous act of meeting, of dialoguing in love, is to turn your prayer into action, a form of living and concrete worship. A disciple said, "I have prayed for him a lot." Jesus nodded. "Good. Now let your feet be the answer to your own prayer. Go and bring with you the love you asked God to give you during your prayer." 56. Reconciliation frees you from the prison of assumptions. When there is a rift, our minds often create countless stories, negative assumptions about the other person's intentions. A direct conversation, though difficult, shatters that prison. It replaces the ghosts of assumption with the light of truth and liberates your mind. Jesus said, "Discord is like living in a foggy room, where you keep bumping into things you can't see clearly. A sincere encounter is throwing open the window to let the sunlight in, so you can see things as they truly are." 57. Learn to see through the action to the pain. Often, the most hurtful actions come from the people who are in the most pain. A bitter word can be the cry of a lonely heart. A selfish act can be the defense of a fearful soul. If you can see the pain behind the action, you will replace judgment with compassion. When the disciples were angry about someone's action, Jesus asked, instead of asking, "Why did he do that?" Have you ever tried asking what hurt him so much that he had to act that way? The answer to the second question will change everything. 58. When you go to correct, be prepared for the possibility that you also need correcting. Enter the dialogue with deep humility, recognizing that your perspective might also be incomplete. Be ready to listen and to realize that you may also be partly at fault, or that you have misunderstood the issue. This openness transforms a confrontation into a mutual search for truth. A person said, "I'm going to tell him where he's wrong." Jesus advised, "Go, but go with a heart ready to be enlightened." Perhaps while you are helping your brother remove the speck from his eye, he will show you the log you were unaware of. 59. Be a peacemaker, not just a peace lover. A peace lover avoids conflict at all costs. A peacemaker courageously steps into the conflict to resolve it with love and truth. Jesus does not call us to avoid. He calls us to engage in order to create harmony. Jesus taught, "Blessed are the peacemakers. A maker is a builder, one who bravely goes into the rubble to rebuild. The one who merely loves peace only stands at a distance and wishes things were better. You are to be the builders." 60. Every relationship is a garden. Correction is the act of weeding. If left unattended, the weeds of misunderstanding, resentment, and small faults will grow, choking out and killing the beautiful flowers of love and trust. Giving feedback to each other regularly and gently is the diligent act of gardening, keeping the relationship garden healthy and fruitful. Jesus said, "Don't wait until the weeds are knee-high to pull them. Remove them when they are just sprouts." A gentle word of feedback today will save you from a bitter argument tomorrow. 61. The other person's reaction does not define your obedience. Your responsibility is to sow the seed of truth in love. You are not responsible for whether that seed sprouts in the other person's heart. The success of this act is not measured by the external result, but by the faithfulness of your heart to the command of love. A disciple said sadly, "I failed. He didn't listen." Jesus replied, "You did not fail. You obeyed. You offered a gift. Whether the recipient opens it or not does not diminish the value of the gift or the heart of the giver." 62. Love keeps no record of wrongs. When a mistake has been resolved and forgiven, tear up the indictment in your mind. Do not keep it to use as evidence in the future. True love chooses to trust and gives the other person a blank slate every day. Jesus told his disciples, "Love has a very poor memory for wrongs. Every morning it wakes up and remembers nothing of yesterday's hurts. Ask the Father in heaven to give you such a memory." 63. In some cases, silence is complicity. When you see a brother going down a path of self-destruction or harming others, your silence is no longer prudence, it becomes complicity. Love sometimes requires us to break an uncomfortable silence, to speak a necessary truth. When the disciples remained silent in the face of a powerful person's wrongdoing, Jesus asked, "If you saw a blind man walking toward a cliff, would you stay silent for fear of startling him? Your silence now is just as dangerous." 64. Teach others how to treat you with truth and love. By giving feedback gently but clearly when there is a transgression, you are establishing healthy boundaries. You are teaching others what is acceptable and what hurts you. This is an act of self-respect and respect for the relationship. A person said, "They keep hurting me over and over." Jesus asked, "Have you ever taught them where the fence of your garden is? You cannot blame others for trampling your flowers if you never show them the path." 65. Receiving correction with gratitude is an even greater grace. If giving feedback requires courage, then humbly, openly, and gratefully receiving it requires an even greater grace. The person who can say, "Thank you for showing me this," is one who is truly walking on the path of wisdom. After Jesus corrected Peter in private, he thought for a moment and then said, "Thank you, teacher. Your words were at first like salt in a wound, but now I feel them healing me." Jesus smiled. "Peter, blessed is the one who knows how to turn bitter medicine into honey in his own soul." 66. A mature community is one where feedback is cherished as a gift. The sign of a community that has reached maturity in love is when its members are no longer fearful or defensive in the face of feedback. Instead, they see it as a precious gift, a proof of care, a tool to help them become better. Jesus described the future community. The day will come when you will compete to have others point out your faults as people search for treasure. For then you will understand that the person who loves you most is the one who dares to tell you the truth. 67. Do not let the sun go down on your division. Resolve conflicts quickly. Do not allow anger and hurt the chance to take root and harden in your heart overnight. The urgency in reconciliation shows that you value the relationship more than your pride. Jesus said, "Anger is like cement. When it's wet, you can easily wipe it clean. But if you let it sit overnight, it will harden into stone and you'll need a hammer to break it. Settle matters while they are still soft." 68. True healing is when you can pray for their happiness. This is the ultimate test of forgiveness. When you can genuinely kneel and ask God to grant the best things to the person who hurt you, that is when you know the chains of resentment have been truly broken and you are completely free. A disciple asked, "How do I know I have truly forgiven?" Jesus replied, "When you can look at that person and say to the Father in heaven, "Father, please give this person the joy that you have given me." At that moment, you have been healed. 69. Sin creates noise. Reconciliation brings music. Discord, resentment, and misunderstanding create a loud, chaotic noise in the soul and in the community. It tires and exhausts us. Reconciliation, on the other hand, brings harmony, melody. It is the music of the kingdom of heaven, where every note sounds in its right place, creating a beautiful symphony. Jesus said, "Listen, when there is division, do you hear the grating sound of chaos? But when there is reconciliation, listen even more closely. You will hear a silent song of peace. That is the very sound of God's heart." 70. This path is not a set of laws, but a dance of grace. Ultimately, all these philosophies are not a rigid list of rules to be followed. It is a dance that requires the sensitivity to listen to the rhythm of the Spirit, the flexibility to adapt to each situation, and a trust in the invisible dance partner who is Jesus himself, who always leads us in every step of love. Jesus said to the disciples who were trying to memorize all his teachings, "Don't just try to learn the steps, learn to listen to the music. If you can feel the music of the Father's love for you, your feet will know how to dance." Before we continue with today's journey of discovery, we would greatly appreciate it if you could take a moment to leave a comment and share your feelings. If you found this content valuable, please don't forget to hit the share button to spread these positive vibes to your friends and family. And now, let's get back to the program. 71. Correction is an act of hope. When you decide to approach a brother, you are powerfully declaring that you believe in their capacity to change. You hope for the restoration of the relationship. And above all, you trust in the power of God's grace to bring back to life what seemed dead. It is an act of betting on hope. A disciple said, "I think it's useless. He will never change." Jesus replied, "The farmer sows seeds not because he is 100% certain they will sprout, but because he hopes for a harvest." Be a sower of hope. Your action, not the result, is what pleases the Father in heaven. 72. Your words build either a temple or a tomb. There are no neutral words in a sensitive conversation. Every word you choose, every tone you use, is either a brick building the temple of reconciliation and respect, or a handful of dirt thrown onto the grave of a relationship. Be aware that you are a builder, not a grave digger. Jesus taught, "Your tongue has the power of life and death." Before you speak, ask yourself, will this word of mine bring life or death to the listener and to the bond between us? Choose life. 73. Love does not seek ease. It seeks truth. Our natural tendency is to avoid things that are difficult and complicated. But love does not operate on that principle. Love is willing to enter thorny places, to face uncomfortable truths, because it knows that true healing and growth lie only on the other side of truth. The disciples asked, "Why don't you choose an easier path?" Jesus answered, "The easy path often leads downhill. The path of life is the path up the mountain. It requires effort. Love never chooses the paved road if it knows the rocky trail is the one that leads to the summit of truth." 74. Every practice is a training of the virtues. The act of correction is not just a task to be done. It is a spiritual gym. Every time you practice it, you are training the muscles of courage, patience, humility, tact, and wisdom. The more you practice, the more those virtues become a part of your nature. Someone said, "This is too hard." Jesus replied, "Does a weightlifter find lifting heavy stones easy? But it is by lifting those stones that he becomes strong. Each of these difficult conversations is a stone that the Father in heaven gives you to train your spiritual strength." 75. The truth without the when and how is not yet wisdom. Knowing the truth, the what, is only the first step. True wisdom lies in knowing when to speak and how to speak. The right truth spoken at the wrong time or in the wrong way can cause more harm than a lie. Wisdom is the art of applying truth to life. Jesus said, "A good physician not only knows which medicine to use, he also knows the dosage and when to administer it." Your truth is the same. Ask the Spirit to grant you the wisdom of dosage and timing. Otherwise, the medicine that cures will become poison. 76. This act transforms the corrector as much as the one being corrected. You may begin this journey with the intention of changing someone else, but if you do it with a sincere heart, you will find that you are the one who is changed the most. It exposes your prejudices, your impatience, and your self-righteousness, and invites you to become more Christ-like. A disciple returned from a successful reconciliation and said, "Teacher, I helped him." Jesus smiled. "Even more than that, through it, the Father in heaven has also helped you to see the dark corners in yourself. You sowed one seed and reaped 2 harvests. 77. Do not confuse unity with uniformity. The purpose of reconciliation is not to make everyone think and act exactly the same. Unity in the kingdom of heaven is the harmony of different instruments, each retaining its own timbre, but playing together to create a symphony. Respect differences while seeking harmony. Jesus said, "A beautiful garden does not have only one type of flower. It is the diversity of flowers that makes it vibrant. Your community is the same. Do not try to turn everyone into a rose. Help each person become the most brilliant version of the flower God created them to be." 78. Reconciliation on earth paints a living picture of the kingdom of heaven. Every time a broken relationship is mended, every time bitterness gives way to forgiveness, we are using earthly colors to paint a small corner of heaven. That action gives the world a glimpse of the reality of the kingdom of heaven, where every tear will be wiped away and all things will be restored. Seeing 2 former enemies sharing a meal, Jesus said to his disciples, "Look closely. This is the image of the banquet in the kingdom of heaven that I have told you about. It is not something far off. It begins right here, right now, with a loaf of bread broken in brotherhood." 79. Let grace be the one who begins and ends the conversation. Begin the dialogue with a silent prayer, asking for God's grace to guide your words, and end it, regardless of the outcome, with an act of grace. Forgiveness offered, or at the very least, entrusting your brother to the mercy of God. Jesus advised, before you knock on your brother's door, first knock on heaven's door, and after you leave your brother's house, leave a small gift on their doorstep, your blessing of peace. 80. This teaching is the beating heart of a self-healing community. If the mechanism of correction is the immune system, then this teaching itself is the heart, the central organ that pumps the blood of life and love throughout the body of the community. A community that lives by this teaching is a community with a healthy heart, constantly purifying and nourishing itself from within. Jesus placed his hand on his chest and said, "Just as this heart pumps life throughout my body, the teaching of reconciliation must be the center that pumps life into your community. If this heart stops beating, the body will die. If your community stops reconciling, it will fall apart. 81. Love gives you the authority to speak. The authority to go and give feedback to others does not come from being more right, smarter, or more moral. The only true authority comes from a sincere love and a deep concern for their well-being. Without that love, your words are just an empty noise. When a disciple asked what right he had to speak to others, Jesus answered, "The only passport that allows you to enter another person's soul is the love you have for them. Without it, you are forever a stranger standing outside the gate." 82. Ally with the person to fight against the problem. Never turn your brother into your opponent. See the problem, the sin, the misunderstanding, as the common enemy. Invite them to ally with you to fight against that common enemy. This approach completely changes the dynamic of the conversation from confrontation to cooperation. Jesus taught, "Say to your brother, 'Friend, there is a problem standing between us and harming our friendship. You and I, let's find a way to solve it together.' Then you are no longer fighting against each other, but together against division." 83. Reconciliation is a direct act against the accuser. In the spiritual realm, there is a force that always seeks to accuse, divide, and sow doubt. Every time you choose the path of restoration instead of condemnation, you are directly disrupting its strategy. Reconciliation is an act of spiritual warfare, declaring that the power of grace is stronger than the power of accusation. Jesus said, "While the accuser stands before God's throne to recount your brother's sins, you stand before your brothers to speak words of healing. Your actions on earth will nullify the accusations in heaven." 84. Healing is a path to walk, not a door to step through. Do not expect complete healing after just one conversation. Reconciliation opens a path. Walking on that path with small steps of trust, patience, and love each day is the true healing process. Be patient with yourself and with others. Jesus said, "Your conversation is not the destination, it is the starting point." It is like when I say to the sick, "Get up and walk." The real healing happens in every step that follows. 85. Don't let your wounds become an excuse to wound others. Be careful. Sometimes we go to correct others, but are actually trying to unload the pain and anger from our own unhealed wounds. Make sure you are acting from a heart that desires healing, not from a heart that is bleeding. Jesus warned, "A physician whose hands are trembling from his own fever cannot perform a delicate surgery." Let me heal you first, then you can become an instrument of healing for others. 86. Celebrate reconciliation. When the lost son returned, the father threw a feast. When a reconciliation is successful, it is a reason to rejoice. Do something concrete, a shared meal, a prayer of thanksgiving, to mark and honor the act of grace. This strengthens the relationship and brings joy to the community. When two disciples made peace, Jesus told them, "Good. Now go find a loaf of bread and a flask of wine. Celebrate together. For today, something that was dead in our community is alive again." 87. Wisdom is knowing when to speak and when to be silent and in trust. You have a responsibility to do your part, to go, to speak the truth in love. But there are times when, after doing everything, you must know your limits. There are doors to which only God has the key. Wisdom is knowing when to step back, be silent, and entrust your brother to God's providence through prayer. Jesus said, "You are responsible for knocking on the door. You are not responsible for breaking down the door. Knock with all sincerity, and if the door remains closed, step back and pray for the one inside." 88. Every word you speak is either a bridge or a wall. There is no third option. In a dialogue aimed at reconciliation, every word you utter has a function. It either builds a span of a bridge for two souls to draw closer, or it lays another brick in the wall of separation. Choose your words like a bridge builder. Jesus taught, "Use words like we, together, help me understand." These are the stones for building bridges. Avoid words like "you always," "you never." These are the bricks for building walls. 89. True love is willing to be temporarily misunderstood. When you act for a person's highest good, they may not understand at first and may react negatively. True love has enough strength and inner security to endure that misunderstanding, trusting that in time, the truth and your good intentions will be revealed. Jesus said to his worried disciples, "People may throw stones at you for what you do today, but if you do it out of love, those same stones will one day become the foundation of the very house they will come to for shelter." 90. This is the essence of the new covenant, a relationship written by grace on broken and mended hearts. This entire teaching is not an additional law, but a summary of the essence of the new covenant that Jesus brings. It is a covenant not written on stone, but on hearts that know their own weakness, dare to face brokenness, and allow the grace of God to mend them. A true Christian community is a collection of mended people helping to heal one another. Jesus picked up a broken piece of pottery, fitted two pieces together, and said, "The old covenant was about trying to keep the pot from ever breaking. The new covenant is knowing that even if the pot breaks, the potter's hands can piece it back together, and the seam, mended with love, will make the pot even more precious than before. You are to be the finders and menders of the broken pieces." Dear friends, we have journeyed together through a long and profound exploration, with 90 philosophies extracted from a seemingly simple teaching of Jesus. If your brother sins, go and show him his fault in private, just between the two of you. Through each stage, we have seen that this teaching is not a dry law, but a whole art of living, a dance of grace that demands courage, humility, and boundless love. It is the art of becoming a bridge builder instead of a wall erector. It is the way for our hearts to become the center that pumps the blood of life and reconciliation for the community. It is the narrow but sure path that leads to true healing for our relationships and for our own souls. This journey through 90 philosophies is not intended to turn us into experts on reconciliation, but to invite each of us to begin humbly the journey of becoming a peacemaker in our own daily lives. And now, the most meaningful action is not just to listen. Church Audio earnestly invites you. 1. Choose one philosophy that resonated with you the most during this program. Perhaps it was small. Philosophy number 7 on building bridges of trust, 145 on reconciling before approaching the altar, or number 68 on praying for the happiness of others. 2. Reflect on it this week and courageously practice it in a specific relationship of yours. 3. Share with us in the comments below. Which philosophy number touched your heart the most? And why? Your sharing is a gift, a precious testimony for our entire community. If you found this program helpful and meaningful, please give us a like and share this video with those you love as a way of spreading the light of understanding and reconciliation. And if this is your first time on our channel, please hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss any programs, and to continue with Church Audio on the journey of exploring the depths of faith through each of the Lord's teachings. Church Audio sincerely thanks all of you for listening and accompanying us. May each of us, through the grace of God, become instruments of peace, diligent builders of bridges of love in a world that is in great need of healing. Farewell, and see you again in our next programs.